Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard. Today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 players of last year's NFL season. But, quick fact, football's back, man. We got the preseason right around the corner. It felt like forever, but it's finally time. Teams are going to training camp, and as soon as next weekend, we're going to have our first NFL games of this season, which I'm very hyped about. So, how you feel about it, Smokey?
Oh, I am so excited, dude. I think I might have said this last week. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but it's almost like Christmas for the football fans, man.
Especially the fantasy players, like
yes.
the hardcore guys. You've been looking at fantasy stats, nothing else since the draft, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, trying to get these projections ready, man.
So now it's finally back. But the NFL Top 100 list is also in the process of being released pretty late. Usually they would start around June, actually late June, and then do like 10 players a week. It seems like they're releasing them in packs of 5 right now, but it's also in more rapid succession because they probably got to get them out. But they're not quite all throughout the list. They just started a couple days ago, but today we are going to predict the top 10 players that we have, or our personal top 10 players of last season. And then once they are out, we can compare them to the official ones, because of course for the NFL rankings, those are voted on by the NFL players. And sometimes I find those rankings a bit skewed. Like I talked to you about this before we started the recording. Actually, they had Julian Edelman within the first 15 players, I think, so like around rank 85 to 90, which to me that's way too low. I think he's a top 50 player all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just have some of those underrated players here and there, but let's see who we have. I think do you want to start with your number 10?
Well, my number 10, all right, and just a little preface for it. It was kind of a bottleneck, and for the top 10 spot, man, I almost did this just to mess with you and threw Deion Jones in there. But I'm not going to do that because
Wow.
he had a rough season last year with injuries. So the other player I was thinking about throwing here was Luke Kuechly, as a matter of fact. But I ended up settling on Julio Jones as my 10th player.
As your number 10?
Yes.
That's very humble of you. I would expected him to be top 3 for you.
Yeah,
So that's your best Falcon of the year? Is number 10?
Man, well, there's actually a couple wide receivers I have above him, if you can believe that or
Wow.
not. But
I can't.
Julio is the evergreen wide receiver. He's probably the archetype of what you would want for a wide receiver in the NFL. You know, he fits the size measurements, the speed measurements, and his hands are like no other.
I remember quite vividly, I think 2 years ago, was it 2016, 2017 season, that was the Kyle Shanahan year when the Falcons were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There was one game that Julio had where he had like 300 receiving yards in 3 quarters or something. You probably remember what game I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And I had him on fantasy lineup, and he scored like
Panthers,
40 points for me. Yeah, it might have been the Panthers. Correct, right. That's when Steve Smith was still playing, right? Crazy. I remember that specifically because I had him in the starting lineup, and I just won everything that
I
weekend.
bet
So
you
that was
did.
great.
I think Matt Ryan had about 4 touchdowns that game also.
Yeah. So for my number 10, I also do have a receiver. It's not Julio Jones, however. It's DeAndre Hopkins for the Houston Texans. This guy is a playmaker. You've seen the catches that he makes. Like, people talk about Odell, Jarvis Landry. This guy's right up there with him.
Yes.
He's a Spider-Man. Like, he's making crazy behind the back, behind the head catches on a damn near weekly basis. He's one of the most important parts in that Texans offense, and a big reason of why Deshaun Watson has had the success that he's had, and he's going to be really important if they're trying to push for that division in the upcoming years. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the top playmakers. I think he had one of his best seasons last year.
He did, man. And it doesn't seem to matter what quarterback he is working for.
Right.
He is always productive. And I actually have him higher on the list than you.
Wow. All right. So, yeah, you foreshadowed that. A couple of receivers still to go.
Yeah, exactly.
That is really surprising to me. I thought for sure you'd put Julio Jones as your highest guy.
Yeah, he's actually, I mean, even in my fantasy rankings, I have him as the 3rd wide receiver. So
The third receiver?
Yeah.
So who you got above him? Like Hopkins and Brown or Odell?
Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins.
Wow, Devontae Adams. All right.
Yep.
I'm curious about your fantasy football segment coming up later.
Oh yeah.
But wow, okay, that seems interesting at least. So who's your number 9?
I have Ezekiel Elliott.
All right.
Now, if you need a guy to run it up the middle, this is your guy. And actually, he's been working on his hands over the past couple seasons, and it turned out to be quite a good receiving running back.
Yeah. See, I can't hate this pick. Go on.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott, man. If I'm hard pressed. I do have. You know what? I have another running back, and I'm sure you can figure out who that is, higher than him on this list.
I think so, yeah.
In fantasy rankings, Ezekiel Elliott would be my first running back off the board.
Really? So for me, usually, it used to be Le'Veon Bell always because of the receiving threat, but I can see how the inconsistencies kind of put it down. I think I know who your running back is, and I think actually it's the guy that I have at number 9 right here, which is Saquon Barkley. Is that your guy?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up there. What were you saying?
Oh yeah, sorry. Saquon Barkley at number 9 for the Giants.
Oh, okay.
Rookie running back. I think that might be the guy that you have even higher on this list. He's my top running back, by the way. I can take that away right now at number 9.
Yes.
So Ezekiel Elliott is not on my list. Todd Gurley not on my list. So Barkley, man, that guy can fly. He's the Giants caught a lot of flack for not drafting a quarterback, which I still think if Darnold, Allen, or Rosen turn out to be even just good starting quarterbacks, it's a mistake not having drafted either of them, because that's just the importance of the quarterback position. But Saquon Barkley is just a surefire piece. Now, you traded Odell away. Eli is not getting any better. You drafted an experimental quarterback. You are very much rebuilding as the Giants, but Saquon Barkley is just such an important piece that you just got to keep around.
I agree, man. He was amazing in college. Wow, yeah. Like what can you say for Penn State? Penn State cranks out running backs each season, it seems.
Yes.
But Saquon Barkley may be the best one they have ever produced.
Oh yeah, for sure. So who's your number 8?
Number 8, I have Devontae Adams. Now this may be quarterback reliant more than anything, but Devontae Adams I've always seen as better than Jordy when he was there. And, of course, they were not going to play him over Jordy just for seniority reasons, I imagine. But Devontae Adams is an amazing wide receiver, and I do have him higher than Julio Jones. And I think if I were picking my top wide receiver under a new franchise, I would go with Julio over Devontae. But being in the situation that Devontae Adams is in, if you have to put them in a comparison side by side, I would take Devontae Adams over Julio. So number 8 is Devontae Adams.
I think that's a very high rank. If we're debating top 5 receivers in the league, then Devontae Adams will be one of those fringe guys for me. Really? I don't think he's going to touch. I'm not sure if he's touching the top 25 overall this year for me, and in the real rankings that are going to be released. Yeah, I know he's an elite player. Although he's really, really good, top 10 receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't see him quite up there with the Julio, with the Antonio Brown. So and DeAndre Hopkins for that matter.
Now I can understand.
I'm not sure about the canon opinion in fantasy there, but
yeah, that's what I was about to say. The metrics doesn't quite put him up there with a D Hop or a Julio, but I think my fantasy outlook kind of skews my opinion here.
Yeah, maybe. So number 8, a guy that you mentioned by name but do not have on your list. I got Luke Kuechly. You got to show some love to these defensive guys. Mm-hmm. They're way underrepresented anyway, and especially in the top 10 list in all the MVP votings and even contracts and payments. Man, this is a hard position to play inside linebacker. And Luke Kuechly is the perennially best in the business since basically Patrick Willis and Ray Lewis retired. So this guy, he's showing up in a lot of top 25s and a lot of top 10s, mm-hmm. and such an important piece of this defense. And he does it every single day. Guy, you've seen plays like, I believe it was when they played the Browns, and Jarvis Landry had that jet sweep where they basically ran him with a power run with a guard pull to the outside, and he just like tied the safety's ankles up in knots and sprinted 50 yards down the field. The one guy to chase him down is Luke Kuechly, and that's the plays that he makes all the time. Tackle at the 5-yard line.
Oh.
And that's the plays that he makes all the time. This guy, you got to show some love to the defensive players. I have some more defensive players on this list. I'm pretty sure you do too. But Kuechly, to me, by far the best inside linebacker in the NFL, and has been for quite a few years. And he's consistent too. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't really miss games. And he just shows up every week.
I agree, man. I hate when the Falcons play the Panthers because of Luke Kuechly. He is always going to disrupt the offense. A phenomenal player, you know, and I don't have him far behind you, but he didn't quite make the top 10. But I really agree. I like Luke Kuechly, man. One of the best linebackers in the business.
A lot of people will put Bobby Wagner in that spot too, which I think he's a top 20 player. Probably, to me, not top 10 though.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to go on with your number 7?
Yeah, number 7, I have J.J. Watt.
Wow, okay.
Perennial top 10 here, J.J. Watt, except for the seasons he's been injured. But as far as getting through the line, getting to the quarterback, disrupting the offense, who better than J.J. Watt? Now, this is age dependent, of course. He's getting up there. He's been around for a while. Yeah. But I do like J.J. Watt this season. I think he's going to hold up. His health is going to hold up. And the Texans' defense is scary.
Yeah, listen, J.J. Watt is a phenomenal player. Now, I made a video about him mid-season talking about how, like, man, J.J. Watt's back. I was ringing those bells. He wasn't quite at the same level as he was before those 2 injury seasons. Still, he's an NFL elite. Like, 80% of J.J. Watt is better than 90% of all defensive linemen in the NFL, for sure. He's not on my top 10. I get that he's a candidate, and he might be on that list just because of the reputation that he has throughout the league. To me, didn't quite make it. There were other players that are just at a higher level for them personally in this year, but I can't disagree with the pick. And J.J. Watt is an incredible player, generational talent for sure.
Definitely.
Now, number 7, and bear with me here. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near this high on the actual list, but listen, man, it's George Kittle. Mm-hmm. You can't, listen, I know that people are going to come at me with, you're a Niner homer, you're this and that. Listen, this man had the best single season that a tight end ever had in this league. Better than any season that Rob Gronkowski, Shannon Sharp, Kellen Winslow, Tony Gonzalez ever had in this league. And he caught passes from Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard, 2 people that nobody knew before the season started. And I know that he might not even be the highest ranking tight end on the list when it turns out, because people they'll rank Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce higher. But listen, Travis Kelce caught passes from the NFL MVP in arguably the best offense in the league last year. Mm-hmm. George Kittle was the only guy in that offense because everyone else got hurt. So you be sure everyone was double covering him, and he still tore people up. So to me, this list is about individual performance. George Kittle had a top 10 in the entire league performance. I don't think he's at that level of reputation yet that they'll actually vote him there, but to me, he clearly belongs on the list.
You know, I can't hate on that pick at all. I do love George Kittle, and it's very rare to see a tight end in the top 10 outside of Gronk in his prime years. But, man, just watching him play last season, he reminded me of Gronk a lot. And for him to be in an offense that is not at 100% and that doesn't have the superstars that a lot of these other teams have, I agree. Kittle is phenomenal, and I respect that pick, man.
He's faster than Gronk, too.
He is, yeah.
This guy has a lot of potential. If not this year, he needs to be in the top 10 next year, because I don't see him having a much worse season anyway, because the conditions that he was operating under were probably about the worst that you can imagine for a second-year tight end.
Yeah.
And having the best season ever historically, and missing out on the best individual game also by like 5 yards. And by the way, he was over 200 in the first half. He did it in one half. I mean, how can you not rank him that high?
I agree, man. I agree. I wasn't quite looking at him as a top 10, but he's on that peripheral,
Yeah.
He's an amazing player.
So
I can't.
we'll see where he ends
I can't
up.
debate that. So I agree with you.
All right, climbing up the list. Who's your number 6 guy?
All right, we already mentioned this guy on your list, but it's DeAndre Hopkins. That is my number 1 receiver this year.
Wow. Okay, so that's the last receiver you have.
Yes.
All right. So no Odell, no AB for you this time.
No. Well, AB, age set aside, he's gonna have to prove himself in that offense down there.
Yeah.
I guess if we were strictly basing off last season and prior seasons, he would definitely be in there. But I almost threw some of my projections into my list. So AB, he's fallen. I'd say he's around 6 or 7 for me in fantasy this season for wide receivers.
Wow. So see, I like to evaluate this list entirely off of last year. 2018 doesn't count. Next year does not count. If someone retires, they still qualify the same. If someone's a rookie, they still qualify the same. So I'm looking at the 2018-2019 season, for example, of George Kittle, not anything else. So to me, he was the best tight end there. And looking at that season of Antonio Brown, it's not even his best season, but the seasons where, like, the past 5 years, he's always been a top 10 player. Mm-hmm. Now, I can easily see how he's not going to be one due to reputation, though, in this year, because he made a lot of enemies. That's for sure. And I think quality-wise, he still could be. I'm going to say I also don't have him on this list because I have another receiver higher than Hopkins, and wow. I don't have him on the top 10 either. Even though it's close, obviously you could easily put him there. I don't think he's gonna have that type of season again, honestly, because Oakland is a circus to me. I don't think they're gonna be producing at that top level in any way next year. The offense, the whole team is just too disorganized, just too bad, frankly. But individually, he's going to have good seasons, good years, good games. Obviously, he's going to make a name for himself. But I wouldn't be too surprised if he didn't show up all the way to the top of the list this year. So, for me, number 6, I have Von Miller, a guy who's been on that list every single year, basically since he entered the league. Arguably still a top 2 pass rusher in the league, has basically always been, and potentially the premier speed rusher in the NFL over the last 10 years since Robert Mathis or something. He's crazy good, crazy consistent. Now you put him next to Bradley Chubb on the other side on that defensive line. People can't double team Von Miller every play. He's bound to make plays for you in the future, and he's a freak of nature. There's not an offensive tackle in the league that can match his speed, and he deserves to be all the way at the top of that list, and number 6 for me.
Man, I really can't hate on that one too much either. I do have him outside of my top 10, but
wow,
Von Miller's perennially amazing. And you know what? He really, the year that they went to the Super Bowl and played the Panthers, and I was really rooting for the Panthers, and he made it a horrible.
Really?
I was. I guess that was kind of homerism too. I mean, as much as I hate the Panthers during the season, I kind of wanted to see the NFC South win a Super Bowl outside of the Saints.
That's so weird to me. That's so weird to me.
I know, a lot of people say that.
The Rams and the Seahawks, over the last week, the Rams and the Seahawks turned me into diehard Patriots fans for a year. for a day in the year. Like, how can you want your division rivals to win anything? Ever not.
Because it makes the whole division look better, though. Say if the Panthers would have won, and then the next season we dominated the Panthers in both games, how much?
But what did they're all gonna come up talking trash to you about how they have a ring now and all? Nah. Listen, I know how obnoxious the Seahawks were when they won like their first championship like ever.
Yeah.
No mas. I don't give anything to my division rivals. Nothing at all. Not putting up.
Well, that is the attitude of many sports fans. Most sports fans, I would say, man. But even in college, I'll cheer for the SEC teams to win. Just to make my division look better. And as much as I hate Alabama,
it depends.
But yeah, are we going on to number 5 here?
Yeah, let's go to number 5. Who you got?
Patrick Mahomes.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, you're gonna have to explain some things. All right.
Well, because
keep going.
I know there's we're basing it off last year, right? So
yeah, off last year only.
Well, of course we don't have anything farther than that back, but this upcoming season he is due for a regression. But being the league MVP, how much can he regress? I mean, he has Tyreek Hill back now, which we'll talk about later. He has McCole Hardman, which is, I'm being a homer and saying I love McCole Hardman. You know what? This is a funny thing. It's just off topic real quick. McCole Hardman has taken Chris Conley's job for the second time in his football career.
Right.
But, he still has a great outlook, man. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes, man. He
But here's what you just
it's has the 50 touchdown season ever happened twice in a row? I don't think so, right?
But here's what you just stating yourself. Like, you're saying he can only get worse from here because he's the best. He's already at the best possible spot. So how come he's number 5?
Even if he regresses, though, with that season he put up, I mean, even 80% of last season is still almost the best quarterback in the league.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, but he had 100% of that last season. How come he's not number 1 on your list?
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking why I didn't have him
That's what
lower.
I'm saying. Like, you're saying he's number 5, but then you're making the argument. You're structuring your argument as in, like, the justification for him to be the number 1.
I kind of am, but
yeah.
If I were starting a franchise, there's another quarterback that I would take over him, and that's pretty easy to figure out who that would be. And
I'm hoping it's Andrew Luck, because everything else doesn't make sense.
Well, it's actually Aaron Rodgers.
Well, but he's old. I mean, if we're talking about starting a franchise, listen, I know Aaron Rodgers is the most talented player until he retires in the league, but he's older.
Yeah, he is, but he's still in his prime, and he is proven to be the most talented quarterback in the league. I mean, well, I guess you can actually make an argument for Patrick Mahomes being the most talented now. Yeah. I mean, I guess that is a point of contention, and it's.
Right, so since you put the transition up, let's make my number 5 happen. I have Aaron Rodgers at number 5, and a lot of people will not include Aaron Rodgers in the top 10 because the Packers didn't go all the way. You got to realize that the Packers are the worst team in the NFL.
They are.
Sans one quarterback.
They are.
Number 12.
And Devontae Adams.
And Devontae Adams, of course. Look for this guy next. I know you like to talk about projections. Look for this guy next season under a good offensive system. Listen, Aaron Rodgers threw for 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions last year, and the Packers didn't win 12 games, 13 games. I know that, but this guy by himself still turns the most games. There's a stat in baseball, wins above replacement. Basically, it states how many games extra a team won because of a player being present, or how many games they would have not won if it weren't for that specific player. Aaron Rodgers has the highest rating of that in the NFL for 10 years now, and I don't think that's going to change unless the Packers go like 6-10 or worse. Yeah. So, to me, he's up there. I know a lot of people will have Tom Brady on their obviously list. He won the Super Bowl, but again, individual rankings, and individually Tom Brady is not for a while hasn't been a top 5 quarterback in the league, but of course he has the more successful team around him, which we know pulls players up.
The more successful coach at that.
Oh yeah.
But I think I know who your number 1 is now. But
yeah. I thought I knew who our number 1 was going to be. I thought everyone knew that, but now I'm curious though. Now I wonder if you have like a Matt Ryan waiting for me just to troll me here.
Number 1, Matt Ryan. I'm just kidding. He actually didn't make my top 10. I know that's disappointing for you to hear, because
that's a relief.
We need that debate, but
yeah. So number 4.
Number 4 is Khalil Mack.
All right.
Now, who would you want more than a J.J. Watt on your defense? Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack. In an amazing defense, man. Those Bears, I'm glad the Falcons are not in that division, because Matt Ryan would get tortured by this defense. Mm-hmm. You know, they Roquan and linebacker, man. And Jesus,
yeah, they're killing people.
Yeah, but Khalil,
and they also take the ball away. Oh wow.
Yes, and Khalil Mack's a big part of that. Probably the number one free agency or trade actually last season.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what Gruden was thinking, but no one knows what Gruden was thinking, and no one can figure out Gruden apparently ever.
He thinks he's still in 2002.
Apparently,
that's what he's thinking.
But yeah, Khalil Mack, man, I look for him to be the second best defensive player in the NFL this year.
All right, so there's another name up there.
Mm-hmm. There is.
All right, I think I have a pretty good idea who that is, and we're probably going to hear that name on my list. Okay, here's something for you, right? Number 4, Julio Jones.
Oh wow,
there you go. You like that one?
I do like that.
my top receiver of the year. I don't have Antonio Brown, like I said. I don't have Odell on this list. Hopkins at 10, Julio Jones at number 4. Man, see, I've been following Kyle Shanahan for a while, and when he was with the Falcons, and I've seen him put up all those records. And he came to the 49ers, and I was like, this is going to translate. Like, the very first season, I was expecting record-breaking offenses. And what I just didn't consider is the players weren't there. And it takes a while for all the players to come in. And right now, basically all the players are there, but that one player still missing is the Julio Jones role for the 49ers. I'm going to say that loud and clear. We got the quarterback. We literally have Tevin Coleman now in that running back. Dante Pettis, emerging receiver. Marquise Goodwin, obviously a speed threat. Got the best tight end in the league, good offensive line. That number 1 receiver, that Julio role, is a role that, honestly, with the 49ers haven't been able to fill since, I want to say, like, the Michael Crabtree in his best years. And that's been a while, like Super Bowl time, 2012, 2013. And that's something that still gonna have to be looking for, because Pierre Garçon is now gone. We don't have that many big guys, that many big receivers. Now they drafted a couple of guys there in the second, third round, but that Julio Jones role is still the elusive one, and he's a player that I admire like crazy, because I know that the things that he does on a weekly basis is not normal, but he makes it look like it. So can't rate him high enough. To me, he's a top 5 player.
Yeah, the only thing that knocks him a little down my list, and it hurts saying this because I love Julio so much, but is the lack of touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know, he went an entire season without a touchdown, or at least most of the season for 2017, when they had that super regression, even though we still made it to the playoff that season. But it was hard watching games where Julio was not getting touchdowns, and he kind of rectified that halfway through the season last year, but there's still that lag. I mean, we still have Calvin Ridley to throw to. Sanu's not a bad receiver at all in the slot, so
Julio is like the one guy, like the one guy in the offense that just barely fell off at all when Shanahan left as a play caller, because you know firsthand how great he is at scheming people over. And Julio is that one guy in the league that just he gets open by himself. If he's covered, he's open. If he's got a man on him, he is open. So you don't have to scheme him open against zone beater with the zone beater. So he's the guy who will continue to function. I knew that from the start. He's going to be the rock for the Falcons. And I got Calvin Ridley, who's getting a lot better, by the way. Great rookie season. Taking some of those stats away, but that tandem is still deadly. Of course, but Julio to me is still the best player on the Falcons, and still the most important part of that whole team.
I agree with you fully.
So top 3.
Top 3. My number 3.
Top 3 money
is Aaron Rodgers. We've already been over
right.
how great Aaron Rodgers is. I mean,
yes. So he's your number 1 quarterback?
Yes, he is the number 1 quarterback.
All right.
And
yeah, I can't disagree with that. I thought that a lot of people would knock me for putting him at 5, but now you got him at 3, and I'm happy. I'm like, okay, I'm reasonable here. I'm in the good territory. We're fine.
I mean, you really would, though, if you were starting a franchise today off that one season, though, take Mahomes over Aaron Rodgers.
See, it almost depends on how long I'm planning to go with that franchise, right? If I'm a coach, I'm like, oh yeah, 2-year contract, you better make the playoffs, go all the way. or you're fired, I'll take Aaron Rodgers because he'll do it right now. If I get the John Gruden contract, was like you're the boss forever, I'll take the young guy. I'll take Patty Mahomes.
Well, I can't hate on Patrick Mahomes because I have him so high, and I do believe in him. I mean, but
I mean, let me clarify this, right? Going into next year, as it's been the last 10 years, Aaron Rodgers is de facto the number one quarterback in the league to me. And if you were to ask me without any context right now, who's the best quarterback in the NFL, I'll say Aaron Rodgers, because that answer is never wrong.
Do you know how many debates I've had? People try to tell me that Tom Brady is better than Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, yeah, I know that. I have those people. I know those people too.
How have you watched the two play? I mean, athleticism. I mean, reading defenses.
Arm talent.
Yes, lack of a head coach.
Yeah.
I just don't get it, man.
Even just reads. You count the percentage of Tom Brady's throws that are determined pre-snap, and this is such a big thing to me, but 90% of the throws that Tom Brady makes, he knows exactly what he's going to do pre-snap.
Yes.
Anyone who can physically throw the ball can make those plays, as stupid as it sounds. And I'm not discrediting him. Listen, he contributes a lot to the Patriots with his experience, his calmness, his knowledge. He knows everything that's going on as a coach on the field. He has the power to call audibles and to kill plays and to check down to runs on the line of scrimmage because he's just seen everything. He knows everything. As an individual, as a quarterback, talent-wise, he's not up there. I know that he's in the perfect system. I know that he runs the ship and he's been running it smoothly for 20 years. And not a lot of people who could do that more consistently without getting hurt and keeping the team together and all that. Massive credit to him. Hall of Famer, first ballot for sure. As a quarterback individually, outside of that system, not up there with the top dogs to me. I know a lot of people don't see that, and I don't necessarily want to call those people stupid or bad or not looking in detail. I get that success paints a picture of a player, and if a player wins that many Super Bowls, he has to be good, right?
Yeah, of course. Good game manager.
And differentiate. But that's exactly right. That's what you said, game manager. And game manager versus playmaker, that's two different things. The more valuable player, for sure, to their team is easily Aaron Rodgers. That's not even debatable.
Yes.
And there's a bunch of other quarterbacks who would rank higher than that too. But you can't discredit him. I know people have the massive impression of Tom Brady. He has the reputation for being such a smart guy who's so tough to beat strategically, tactically, which is an art form in and of itself at quarterback. So I know he's going to be high on that list. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top 10 and to see him over Aaron Rodgers, even though personally to me it doesn't make a lot of sense.
I agree.
So I'm with you there. So number 3 for me, right?
Yes.
I have another man by the name of Aaron on number 3, and it's Aaron Donald, defensive lineman for the Rams. This guy is the first answer I would have given to you if you asked me who do you want over J.J. Watt on your defensive line. Aaron Donald, a couple years younger, hasn't been hurt that much, can probably pass rush better than J.J. Watt from the 3 technique, and even the nose technique can line up at the nose, which J.J. Watt doesn't do much. Listen, I've seen him play a couple of years. I've seen him terrorize offensive lines and requiring double teams everywhere firsthand against the 49ers, and it's tough. It's like that what you're talking about, having Khalil Mack and the Bears defense in your division. Aaron Donald is a load to deal with. To me, top 3 guy. A lot of people will argue him being the best defensive player in the league right now, which is a reasonable argument to make. So, he's number 3 for me.
I agree, man. There is no better defensive player than Aaron Donald, in my opinion.
It's great.
The guy looks like the Hulk. Like, he's just jacked. Could you imagine running into Aaron Donald outside of a big bar one night, and he's pissed at you for some reason?
You better run. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't matter if you run because he's 280 pounds. He's still fast. He's still faster than you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what makes him so crazy. He moves like an edge rusher, but he's 290 pounds.
Yes.
And he lines up at nose and the 3, and he takes on a double team, and somehow still slips by people and gets around them. He's incredibly elusive, incredible technique and speed rusher. He's not, of course, he's not the biggest guy, but he's a defensive tackle who can defend the run. He can play gap control. But what makes him so special, sets him apart, is that inside pass rush, which is hugely important. Now, he's also not the tallest guy. Like, there's always the great comparison with him and DeForest Buckner, because they're opposites in a lot of ways, but they're both super impactful in their own ways, which that they're pass rushers, primarily from the 3 technique, or optimally. And Aaron Donald is a 6'1" guy. He's a bit heavier, 280, 290, more of the classical nose tackle shape. But he has just inhumane speed and quickness for his position. And Buckner is the huge guy, 6'7", one of the longest set of arms in the league, who just swim over every guard in the NFL and just block passes. He just stands up straight. Quarterback can't see anything. So those two are always joy to watch. Aaron Donald, to me, insane player. So definitely deserving of the number 3 spot. I know you all also have him, so I'm still looking forward to where you have him ranked. But let's see here number 2.
Well, it's about to be easy to figure out where I have him, because at number 2 I have Saquon Barkley.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty high.
It is for a running back, but like I was saying earlier, Saquon is the entire team in New York right now.
Yeah.
And the whole team
after the departure
is going to live or die. You know, their quarterback situation is horrible. You know, and the replacement's probably not going to be any better, at least not in his first season. He may, develop, but Saquon Barkley is going to determine whether they win or lose this entire season. You know, I can't pencil them in for the playoffs because of Saquon Barkley, but if you're going to pick any running back right now out of the NFL, Saquon Barkley has to be number 1.
Yeah, probably. Actually, I do agree with that. Now, how about this proposition, though? They lose, and he still has a record-breaking season.
Oh, that's very possible.
Because that's the one downside of having such a great running back, right? The one downside is that it's a running back.
Yeah.
And it by itself is one of the less decisive positions. I know that he can probably add 2 to 3 wins by himself to a team, but just being the greatest running back of all time. Look at Barry Sanders, right? And the Detroit Lions were garbage the whole time that he was playing.
Yes.
And he was just the best. Like, he was the best player in the league every year. It was very obvious to people, to everyone watching. He did not get that team to any significant runs. No significant championship successes there. And the Giants are not going to win because of Saquon Barkley. They might not go 0-16 because of Saquon Barkley, but he's not going to be the guy to give him 5-6 wins. That's only something that a quarterback can do for the most part as an individual player, and that's going to be a lot on Daniel Jones over the next years.
Yeah, it is. But the fact remains that you have to have a really good running back to have successful seasons, and there is none better than Saquon Barkley.
I do agree with that. Saquon Barkley is fantastic. He's I think I said this. He's my top running back on this list too. So he's also the only one I had at 9. But yeah, just being in like 1 year, he's the surest thing that you can be after one season as a rookie. So totally agree with that. Number 2 for me, Khalil Mack, name we've heard from you as well. That guy was on route to have the best season a defensive player ever had in the NFL. After a quarter of the season, this guy was averaging an interception and a forced fumble and a sack a game for like half the season. It felt like, which is insane. And he paid the Bears back tenfold for whatever they paid him, and whomever they sold their souls to get that trade done. It was worth it. Because that defense is, it's amazing. It's gonna win the division. I'm telling you, that defense is going to win that division over the next years. And Khalil Mack is going to be one of the cornerstones. That guy is out of this world.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of taking defense anywhere high in a draft outside of the last 2 rounds. But if you're someone who does that, then there's no better pick than the Bears, and Khalil Mack is the reason for that.
Used to be the Jaguars for a while and the Seahawks. I always just like to. Here's what I like to do. I like to in fantasy. We can talk about this a bit later too. Let's move this to the last topic. I'll tell you my defense strategy. Mm-hmm. The number ones, man. We need the number ones. Who you have at number one? As if I didn't know.
Well, of course, it's Aaron Donald. There's not much more we can say about him. He's to me the best player in the NFL.
That's acceptable. I don't want to even hate that because I know a lot of people share that opinion. I have him top 3, and it is a matter of just personal preference. You know, how much do you value the inside rush over the edge rush? It's a thing between him, Mac, and Savon Miller. Mm-hmm. So,
we're
definitely acceptable.
Worth every penny of that contract.
Sure. To me, it's Patrick Mahomes. Listening at the best season of a quarterback that I personally ever witnessed, ever since Peyton Manning broke every record. But again, he was padding his stats more. Listen, like Peyton Manning, when he broke the record, he was padding the stats hard. And Patrick Mahomes, most of what he did, those touchdowns were important because the Chiefs' defense wasn't necessarily the best. So when they were playing the Rams and the game was like 50, tied at 50 or something close to that at the end, everything he did was he had to do it too, and he just kept delivering. So he outdueled every single quarterback he faced. And I said this before their playoff game against the Patriots. I said, if the Chiefs have a average, like a top 16 defense, they win the game. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that it just wasn't enough. The defense side just wasn't enough. But that is something that you can work on. And Patrick Mahomes, to me, has had the best season that he possibly could have had, and I'm using the same argumentation as you did. He's like at the top right now. It can only basically go downward from that, and from that follows that he is the number one player, best player in the NFL of the past season. He's the MVP, so people would tend to agree with that. Well deserved to me too. So that's my number one right.
Yeah, I can't hate on it, man. You might not agree with this, but I think he is the best mobile quarterback since Mike Vick. I know you're not big on Mike Vick, though, are you?
I'm a bit confused how Patrick Mahomes to you is a mobile quarterback. I'm not sure. Like he's not mobile in the same way as like Russell Wilson is mobile.
He is mobile, man. He's
mobile.
Well, look, I base it on how well you can throw on the run, not just running for touchdowns, but how well you can get outside of the pocket. You can move to the sideline and still, on the move in the wrong direction, launch a good 50 yards, 60 yards downfield.
I mean, he's not much more of a mobile quarterback than Aaron Rodgers is. He's a quarterback who can be mobile.
Great on the run, you know.
Aaron Rodgers is arguably the best thrower of the football since John Elway, or ever, maybe. So, on the run especially. But I wouldn't consider those guys completely mobile quarterbacks. Mobile quarterbacks to me are Lamar Jackson, like Colin Kaepernick was a mobile quarterback. And mobile quarterbacks have historically had kind of bad reputations because they just weren't as consistent because people would start figuring them out.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Robert Griffin. What happened to Colin Kaepernick. It just dropped off. They took the league by storm and played crazy. No one knew how to stop them. Next year they come back and they just aren't that good if they can't pass from the pocket. Yeah. And you got rare examples like Russell Wilson who can do that and consistently are great and are still the mobile threat. Now to me, Patrick Mahomes isn't in that top tier of mobility when it comes to quarterbacks, but it's nice to have that extra capability that comes with being able to scramble and throw in the ball.
Yeah, he's definitely not the fastest. You know, he's not the fastest quarterback to ever play in the NFL, but it's just amazing from the no-look pass, man, to just running to the sideline and still launching to the other side of the field, you know, a good 40 yards
flipping
downfield, 50 yards.
Left hand, The Broncos are having some nightmares of those two games.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I watched those two. I watched those two games in detail when I made an analysis video on Mahomes. I was watching a lot of those games. Special, definitely special. Which leads me to believe that that was not a fluke. He's really that good, and he's going to repeat as top 10 material for a couple of, the next 10 years potentially. But he's really gonna be maintaining that elite status.
Oh yeah, well, you know, and that's probably you're not considering him a mobile quarterback, but I do, and that's probably what's going to keep him alive as a mobile quarterback longer than, say, an RG3 or even a Mike Vick or a Lamar Jackson, because he can get rid of the ball when he's under pressure outside of the pocket.
But let me ask a couple questions then, because with the whole quarterback definition thing, do you consider Carson Wentz a mobile quarterback?
Yeah, as much as well, I kind of have to give an asterisk to that. Yes, he was, but he seemed to lose a lot of that mobility after his injury.
But is he like the same type compared to like Lamar Jackson?
No, not compared to Lamar Jackson. Compared to a Cam Newton, I would say.
All right. See. Okay, here's the thing, because I still differentiate between a running quarterback and a quarterback who can run.
Oh yeah.
So I know that Carson Wentz, he's a quarterback. He's a passing quarterback. He can run. He can. Like once or twice a game, he can take a hit, he can tuck the football, he can run, and he can scramble and throw on the run, which becomes more and more important. Obviously, 20, 30 years ago, people weren't asked to do that.
Exactly.
They weren't taught to that in college. People weren't running that much spread in college, and it wouldn't translate into the NFL. It's becoming more and more important, and you're going to see not a lot of quarterbacks coming out in the draft process, going anywhere near the top, that aren't at least a little bit mobile, have those mobile capabilities. But that's why I don't like classifying everything as a mobile quarterback.
Okay, I understand that. I would, definitely there's a difference between a running quarterback and a quarterback who can run.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at that category, you could throw a Mitchell Trubisky in there. You could throw Josh Allen in there,
Yeah.
These guys are built like linebackers. And they can throw the ball a ton, but they can still move outside the pocket. They're not immobile like a Phillip Rivers or a Peyton Manning.
Exactly. And quarterbacks, young quarterbacks these days coming out are required to do that. You can't come out like a Peyton Manning coming out of college with just what we knew of him in college. He wouldn't go first overall anymore today because he's just not mobile enough.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that the quarterback position has shifted, coming from that college and scholastic style into the NFL. Most quarterbacks are at least a little bit mobile because they just have to be.
And that's what I see hurting Jake Fromm in the upcoming draft next season.
Yeah. Maybe. I think that's to a degree what hurt Josh Rosen's draft stock, because he fell down more than a lot of people had predicted.
So, just on that really quick, do you see Tua as a mobile quarterback?
I see him as a quarterback who can run, probably. I know. He's got enough mobility to justify him being arguably the first overall pick or the best candidate for that, and combined with his old school, I want to say, passing quarterback talents, he's good enough. He can give you that those 10 carries a season where he just needs to pick up a first down or just tuck the ball, make a couple of yards happen. That's all you ask of those types of quarterbacks. So to me,
compared to like a Jalen Hurts, who was basically a running back who Saban was teaching to throw the ball, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was a mobile quarterback. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So let's get into the next one. We have tight ends.
Yes.
We already mentioned a couple of them. I had one on my top 10, which, of course, I'm pretty sure we can agree that George Kittle does not count for breakout anymore because he had his breakout season already.
By far.
But we're talking
broke
about
out double.
We're talking about breakout tight ends or candidates for that in 2019. Yes. I have 2 names written down. I know that you probably have a couple more, because you always like to dig a little bit deeper from that fantasy background. But to me, I'm scraping the surface here. I'm going with the obvious picks, and letting you elaborate on those like 15 to 20 round sleepers. To me, first of all, and you might as well have those names in the list too, I got O.J. Howard for the Buccaneers, and this is a bit of a suspicious one, because people might argue that he already had his breakout season too, because he had his best season last year. It was pretty good. But I think he can be even a lot better than that. I can think he can break out from that and establish himself firmly as a top 5 guy. Be it he's in a bad spot with his team. I'm not gonna deny that. But I've seen him at Alabama a bunch, and he was just up there as one of the best players in the country year by year. He's had some injury problems, and he's arguably hitting the prime of his career. I think he can definitely establish
Oh,
himself at the very top.
All right. Who was your second one there?
And the second one is Chris Herndon for the Jets.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a funny name that's a fun name that you might also like to hear because he's a lot of people hyping him up for fantasy, and for the real life too. I think he's gonna do really, really well. Sam Darnold is expected to get exponentially better. Now you add a run game with Le'Veon Bell, and the Jets offense is looking pretty good. You got Robbie Anderson, number one receiver, who's some might argue scraping that elite top in the NFL. So Chris Herndon to me is in the right position more so than OJ Howard, but I think he can make stuff happen this year.
Oh, I agree, man. And I put Chris Herndon just outside of my top 5. Of course, he's going to miss those first 4 games this season because of his DWI. Good job there, Chris. But Chris Herndon, developing quarterback situation, he's definitely a great candidate, just outside of my top 5, though. I would also like to throw in, before I get into the top 5, Evan Ingram, who a lot of people say has already broken out in his rookie season.
Yeah.
That was mainly situation dependent. He basically had to be the number 1 receiver on the team for that stretch.
And he now has 2 as well.
Yeah, and another one that's really iffy is Mark Andrews for the Ravens. Now, they drafted this guy. He was actually the second tight end they took in that draft. He was came from Oklahoma, where he was outstanding as a tight end. And he did really well coming on at the end of the season last year, but it's all dependent. They're not that much of a passing team with Lamar Jackson, so we'll have to see how that develops. That's why I didn't throw Mark Andrews in there. But as far as a athlete and giant tight end, he's definitely a good candidate for a breakout. But let's start with number 5 is Austin Hooper. And I can be a homer here. I put him at 5. I didn't put him at number 1, so calm down. 71 receptions, 666 yards last season, and 4 touchdowns. Made the Pro Bowl, played 16 games. Austin Hooper is in a dynamic offense. Dirk Cutter's coming back there to take the reins, and I believe Mike Mularkey is the tight ends coach now. So he's in good hands, and he definitely has a chance to take that step to being an elite tight end this season. Number.
Oh yeah. Right.
You can comment on any of these, unless you want me to go.
Yeah. No, I'm cool.
All right. Number.
I was expecting a Falcon player.
Of course you were. Number 4 is David Njoku. A lot of people say he disappointed in his first couple seasons, but look at the team. It was team dependent. This guy is a phenomenal athlete. 56 receptions last year, 639 yards, which is he's the most yardage for any any tight end that I have on this list. 4 touchdowns, which is a repetitive number for these guys. Most of them have between 4 and 5 touchdowns, but any of these guys can double that this upcoming season.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3, Hunter Henry. Now, of course, he played 0 games last season.
Yes.
Kind of busted up. But the season before, he played 14 games, 45 receptions, 579 yards, 4 touchdowns. And that was him playing alongside of the Hall of Fame bound Antonio Gates. So look for Hunter Henry. If he is able to snap back from that injury, he is definitely a giant candidate for this. And if it wasn't for him missing all of last season, I would have had him at number 1. And actually, I had him at number 1 last season.
Wow, he has to stay healthy. That's been the one issue. We know his talent. He has to stay healthy. He hasn't been able to do that
exactly, yet. And that's the problem. Number 2, I agree with you on OJ Howard. 34 receptions, 565 yards with 5 touchdowns over only 10 games. And say what you will about famous Jameis Winston, but the guy can throw the ball, and OJ Howard is a great target out there. He's a giant man that is really athletic, and he was great for Alabama, and there's not much more than you can say, but he's definitely right up there. Almost made the number 1 for me. But I have a
All right.
surprising pick for my number one, and I don't think you're going to agree with me. And
I'm not sure.
this
I'm
is
not sure.
probably the oldest candidate for a tight end breakout that I've ever came up with.
All right.
He is in his 7th season.
All
Before we get
right.
to the name, I'm gonna.
Is it? I think I have an idea
Yeah, you
actually.
may have.
Yeah, I have an idea. Is it Vance
It is
McDonald?
Vance McDonald. You're good.
That's what I thought.
50 receptions last season, 610 yards, 4 touchdowns, playing alongside of Jesse James. Now Jesse James is gone. He's gonna get all those targets. Antonio Brown is gone. He's gonna get a good bit of those targets. Vance McDonald is my number one breakout
Yeah.
candidate this year, and he's a much better athlete than Jesse James was. And Jesse James was no slouch, considering the situation he was in.
That makes a surprising amount of sense. I barely considered him. See, Vance McDonald was on the 49ers once upon a time.
Yes.
Before he came to the Steelers, and he was like second, third string at the time he was there, because that's the time that we had Vernon Davis, and he was like the best tight end in
Oh
the league,
yeah.
and the backups just didn't get to do too much. I just remember like. In like Madden 25, Madden 15, he was always like the run blocking second guy because his run block rating was so
Yeah.
high. So I'm gonna be honest, I haven't considered him an potentially good or great or elite receiving tight end, but I've seen him flourish last year with the Steelers, and
Yes.
you've described the circumstances really well. He's gonna be in the optimal situation for him personally that he will ever get into. So this is his big chance for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, this is make or break for Vance McDonald this season. After Vernon Davis was gone to the Redskins, it amazed me that they didn't hang on to Vance McDonald. But I mean, as we see
Yeah,
now, it,
he
it
was the
completely
first guy
worked
out the
out
window.
for him. But
Yes, even though between the Vernon Davis, George Kittle days, there was a couple of years so where not too much was going on. We had people like Garrett Selleck
oh
starting,
yeah,
and Vance McDonald was there for a while, but the tight end position was a bit iffy. We also, just to keep in mind, like basically around the time where Vernon Davis left, they also had Delaney Walker as their second tight end, and
yes,
they traded to the Titans. Because we have Vernon Davis, and 2 years later he's becoming bad and he leaves. So that was a tough spot there with that position. But now of course Kittle is there. But yeah, McDonald, man, I like that pick a lot. I have not considered him as a breakout candidate, maybe because he is so
yes.
old. He's already like what do you say,
He's
seventh year in the
29
league.
right now. He'll be
So
going on
yeah,
30.
it's been a while,
I'd have
but
to look see if it happens during the season or not. But
But the more I think about it, you are right in saying that this is the first time he really has that opportunity
yes,
to really make it happen and get all those touches, because he's always been under other better guys.
yeah, I really like him for this season, man. I'm gonna put my reputation on the line and go advance this season.
All right, like it's let's hope it's not going to be the Gary
I
Barnes
know,
situation.
man. He burnt me. Hey,
Yeah,
but
got a pretty good. You got a pretty good rep on tight ends
yeah,
in the community. Or so I've heard. We don't talk about Gary
I have
Barnes,
Zach
so let's
Ertz
hope Vance
and
McDonald.
Kelsey, to my credit.
Yeah, Kittle too.
Yeah, Kittle last season.
Even though I also have Kittle. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk about Gary Barnage. Let's
No,
hope
let's
Vance
skip
McDonald
over
makes it
Gary
happen.
Barnage for right now.
And we both agree on OJ Howard. That's
Yes.
great. So, we've talked about it a little bit, but update to close out the show. Some fantasy football, because it's really getting into that hot phase now. Over the next couple of weeks is when people want to draft. And we're getting into training camp. Obviously, people are getting cut. The final rosters are approaching, and we'll see preseason. I personally think the best point to draft my league is after the second week of preseason. That's the time that I prefer most for the fantasy drafts. I don't know how you look at that, but give me your insights of this week.
All right. Before we get into the big news, let's go over some smaller points. Kelsey was cleared for the start of training camp, so he's good to go, and there's not much risk of him losing any of his production for this season. Being in that dynamic offense, there's not much more to say about that. Kelsey's clear and he's gonna go, so keep drafting Kelsey if you like to take running backs in the first or second round because that's where you're going to have to get him. It's kind of like Gronk was back in the day, you know.
Yeah.
You either get him in the first or second, or you don't get him. So I never had him, but you know, if
Never had Gronk.
if you like to take tight ends early, then you know Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz. You know, keep loading up on them because right now there's no danger there. Cooper Kupp was cleared for the start of training camp. He is off the PUP list, or he didn't make the PUP list. That is. Kelsey, you know, the slot there, he gets a lot of touchdowns. He's not the biggest yardage guy. Gets a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to look it up. Kupp is going, I'm thinking somewhere around the 5th, 6th round, which is not a bad spot for that production. The only thing you have to worry about is he going to keep getting his touchdowns? And, you know, that's something you have to project and really hope for. But
I think if you live in a world with Todd Gurley, you depend a lot on touchdowns in terms of fantasy because you're just not going to be the top yardage guy as a receiver in that offense.
Not at all. Edelman has a thumb injury, so Edelman's missing about 3 weeks for the starting of training camp. Should be good to go by the season, but keep an eye on that. We were talking about Edelman as being underrated and underdrafted, as a matter of fact. Way later in the rounds than he should be. Last year he had that PED suspension, which kind of hurt his rankings as well. And I'm willing to bet that he's going to be a late rounder again because of this injury, but we'll see how that develops through the training camp. Cam Newton has avoided the PUP list, so apparently he's feeling good about his shoulder these days. Cam Newton at the end of the season couldn't throw over 30 yards for some reason. Which leads me into the other news. Greg Olsen is back, and he says he has been 100% for months. Speaking of tight ends, Greg Olsen has always been on that peripheral of elite tight ends. And so look for him to make a comeback. You know, you can't really say a breakout because he's had really great seasons. So look.
He's also old.
He is. But in tight end years, not so bad. Maybe in running back years, he's extremely old. But look for him to make a comeback. You know, I wouldn't draft him in anywhere of the top 6, 7 spots, maybe not even the top 10. I'd have to project that far, but look for him. You know, if you need a late round tight end, Olsen's going to be there, and you know, dependable so far as long as he doesn't get injured. But the big news of the week is Mr. Tyreek Hill. Say what you will about the situation he has gotten himself in, but he is not going to be suspended. Now, I've seen since this news broke, Tyreek Hill had dropped deep into drafts. His ADP had fell, I don't know, like 5th, 6th round. But Tyreek Hill over this past week has skyrocketed back into the 1st round, and he's coming off the board with the top 4 or 5 wide receivers right now. And I don't necessarily project him over Julio, D-Hop, Devontae Adams, Odell Beckham, but he is right there just outside of the top 5. So we could always, there's always a possibility that this could come back to haunt him again. But right now it doesn't look like it's going to, and they're going to let him go through training camp, and apparently he's going to be the number 1 again. How do you feel about this situation with Tyreek Hill?
I think that's huge news. Like you just mentioned, he's not going to be suspended. I think a lot of the expectation was depending on that, and it very much shows. Like you mentioned with the draft stock just jumping up, and that just goes to show that if he's playing, you know how much of a difference he's going to make, and what kind of a value top guy he's going to be if he is playing. And with that being the case, I totally see it justified for him to jump up in the draft stock. I think he's an explosive guy, and I think he's a fantasy ace, and I'm going to have my eyes on him for sure if he can, you know, first of all, stay healthy, stay out of trouble, and play for a full season. He's in a great system, and he is in a great role within that system because he has a lot of explosive performances.
He does, man. Probably the fastest wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
I know that's never been justified, right? He didn't have a combine score, right? If I remember correctly. I don't think he got
I don't
invited
think so. I don't know.
to the combine.
Yeah. The fastest combine time is John Ross.
Yeah, for
But,
that 4:22.
actually, yeah. The fastest player that was measured last year, like on the field, I believe was Matt Breida, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, Devin McCourty for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think you're right about Burrito. But Tyreek Hill, it goes around the league that everybody has a consensus as far as players go that he is the fastest wide receiver in the NFL.
He's fast. He is very fast.
I kind of feel like this situation he's gotten himself in, though, affects people drafting him. Some people are able to look past the aspects of it and not think about it, but there's a lot of people who draft and take personal issues with players when they do something like this. It's been on record that he apparently has hit his 3-year-old son, I believe it is, and threatened his significant other. At the same time, there was that recording that came out during the draft of all times. And people do. Some people, I saw, what was it, Arian Foster. Back in the day, people were not drafting him after things that he had said and done. And
wait, are we talking about Arian Foster? You're sure? You don't mean like Ray Rice or Adrian Peterson?
Oh, of course. There was the Adrian Peterson situation with the punishments of his child. And actually, I want to say that did hurt his fantasy draft as well.
Was this some incident with Arian Foster? I thought he just was bad at some point.
Oh, say that again. Sorry, you broke up.
Was there some off the field incident with Arian Foster? I don't.
No, I think it was just statements that he was making, and I've seen where people will take personal issue with statements. During the whole kneeling situations and things like that, that was hurting.
Yeah.
Of course, it hurt Kaepernick. We all know the situation with Kaepernick, but he was a draftable quarterback before all that happened, and he fell out. I mean,
the player that hurt most, I think, to the degree is Eric Reed, actually, because he, quality-wise, it definitely showed that people were avoiding him. With Kaepernick, I'm more understanding of the whole situation, actually, because he just wasn't that good. But it's a whole different can of worms. But Eric Reed for sure had some issues with that. Now, the thing is with taking personal things into account while drafting, to a degree, I can see why, but if you're interested in optimizing your fantasy strategy, you don't do that for just personal reasons. I don't like this person, so I'm not going to draft him. Like, I might not like Russell Wilson personally because he's a Seahawks quarterback, but if he's there like at around 12, I'm going to draft him. Now, I understand that people who get in trouble are more likely, or there's at least a concern that they might get in trouble again halfway through the season and then get suspended. And trust me, I know about this because it seems that happens every year with San Francisco's superstars. Yeah. So we've had that a lot. I'm careful about that sort of thing, the character issue. But if there's no reason to suspect any potential suspensions coming up, I don't see why you should change your draft stock on a player because of personal reasons.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. You really have to block all that out when you're drafting and take best player available in these situations. And if he's the best player available, you really have to look past it. Now, you're right. The only thing you really can speculate on is he going to get in trouble again? This happens with Ezekiel Elliott season to season. Everybody's wondering, like, how long is it before the other shoe drops? How long before he gets in trouble again? But judging from the past, Ezekiel Elliott will help you win championships. So
if he plays.
Exactly.
But there's an additional risk. There's an additional risk that you got to be prepared that like week 5 he gets in an altercation off the field, gets suspended for half a season.
Leonard Fournette as well, as we saw last season.
Yeah.
But Tyreek Hill probably going around the end of your first round right now. So
wow, that is very.
If you believe in it, take him because he can definitely produce for you as long as he stays.
How's the Kareem Hunt stock looking?
He is way down.
He's way down. He's not projected to be the starter,
no,
right?
Not at all. I mean, he's definitely suspended for the first 8 games, and now there's a new issue that has come up that I haven't looked into too much, apparently.
So is he like a guy that you potentially get like in the last round when nobody wants him, just for the back of the season playoffs?
Yeah, you definitely could do that. Yeah, especially in best ball. Take him late, and hopefully he's going to come through later in the season when you really need him after you have some injuries on your team. But
also, there is good reason to suspect that the Browns are still going to be competing for something at the end of the regular season too.
Definitely that possibility. So yeah, I mean, you could definitely take him in your last round. If you're in a redraft league, you can get him off the waiver wire, I'm sure, unless you just have someone in your league that really believes in him, that he's going to come through at the end of the season. Now, I don't see...
I like those picks.
I don't see Kareem Hunt coming in, and they're just like, okay, Chubb, now we're going to run a 50-50 split or anything. But I could definitely see him getting a lot of third down work and some touchdowns when he does come in. So, something to take in.
Definitely, rotation is a good idea.
Oh yeah, take that into consideration, and that'll wrap up the news for this week.
See, I've always liked those picks. Like, I was the guy the last 3 years who would take Josh Gordon in round 18 just because I could, and I had all my needs filled, and it's just a higher roll, right? Never really came to fruition the way that I wanted it to, but I like taking those shots sometimes when I can afford to do it. If I know I had a good draft, I gotten players at good value, didn't need to reach much. I like to do that sometimes to fill the depth out and get the potential. I'm already thinking I'm making the playoffs anyway, so I'm stacking up for late season. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it does not.
Yeah.
But all right, thanks for that news. We'll hear more about that as we get closer to the season. And a proposition for me, a thing that I think we should do on the show on a weekly basis. As a matter of fact, from now on, we should predict games. I think that'd be a great competition too. Just keeping score of how well we do. I did it last year. I kept score of all my regular season and playoff predictions, and I can dig up my exact record. But I'm gonna post that for sure, tell you, and then we can try and beat that.
All right, definitely sounds good to me.
So next week, first week of preseason. It's going to be super fun. Excited for Hard Knocks, excited for training camp, and football season is finally back underway. Expect a lot of news stories, expect a lot of fantasy as we get into that hot phase. And thank you for watching. Drop a like on this video, and if you are watching on my channel on Beyond Football, go check out Smokey's work. Smokey, want to introduce the people to what you do on YouTube real quick?
Yeah, we are the Trash Talkers. I am one half of the Trash Talkers. We do a variety of shows here on YouTube. We do podcasts, we do stories, we do debates as of recently. So go and check those out, man. It's pretty fun. We also do music. We post music videos from time to time. Definitely check us out. The links are in the description, and hopefully it'll be a good time for you.
Oh yeah, I like the debates. I've been checking out some of their podcasts recently. It's definitely entertaining. So I can recommend it. And if you're watching on their channel, obviously, come on over to Beyond Football and check out some of the other content that I present. If you're a sports fan in general, you've come to the right place. Football more specifically, I do a lot of analysis videos. And I hope you might enjoy that content as well. As for now, thank you for watching this. Drop a like on this video and go subscribe to both of our channels. Also, let us know your opinions on the top 100 players. Who do you think that we ranked incorrectly? Who do you think should be number one? Who's going to be number one? And what's your fantasy stock? Are you buying into Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt? Let us know in the comments. So thank you for watching, and we're going to see you in the next one. Smokey?
We're good. Deuces.